welcome to Picks with the Professor, the sports betting show hosted by a real statistics professor. Jake, it's been a while since you've been on. It's college basketball. We're finally getting you back on a baseball show. How you been?
It's been good, been busy. I don't know if I remember how to talk sports anymore. This is tough. This is tough.
It has been a while. I think we've both had a lot going on in our lives. If you follow me on Twitter, if you're with us on Dub Club, you are kind of aware why we missed Tuesday. Our little one ended up in the hospital. It's not as bad as it sounds. I think I'd mentioned this before, that he was small and not growing. We kind of knew the day was coming where he would need a feeding tube, but that day had come. And that was on Monday, and there was still happening with that. So I've been up there now for 24 hours straight. So we're able to jump back on here for Wednesday's show. Everything's good though. With that, it's just, we were hoping to not have that day come, and it happened. So there we are. So that's why, of course, we weren't Tuesday, but again, appreciate everyone's well wishes and concerns, and everything again seems to be going well. And now we can pump him full of calories and get him nice and buff, because he's a little dude. Unfortunately, he needs to grow. Wanted to recap here. We missed a show here, and we missed a show from the weekend because we don't do so many shows. But just to recap the week, I talked about this previously. Week 10 and week 9 looked just as good, but the play of the day has now won 6 out of 7 weeks. The extra credit pick remains positive. We did really well with the show picks last week. We did not do well with the show picks on Monday, 0-3. That is going to happen on occasion, unfortunately, just like we went 3-0 the last time. Hopefully we can go 3-0 again today. That'd be a lot more fun. But the other A grades there at 6% ROI, since we redefined the grading structure, and the model, the best model picks just continue to tear it up as well. If you played all the model picks here last week, you're up like 21 units, and I think you're up about the same the week before. The model is starting to look incredibly good. Things are going really well. Jake, I hope you've been profiting
Yes.
along with us.
Oh, it's my bankroll's been growing like crazy. I've absolutely loved this baseball season.
We'd love to hear it. Again, it was a little bit of a rocky first couple of weeks there starting off, but again, doing really well so far now. And if you want to join a part of that, get all the model picks. Again, all of my favorite picks, the play of the day, the Discord chat group, which is a lot of fun, a lot of information, a lot of Q&A, a lot of learnings over there, more projections, the totals, the run lines, the first fives, a pick or a lean on every single market you can possibly imagine, a bunch of good reasons to be over there with us on Dub Club if you are not already. And real quick, before we get to it, here are some reminders. Pickswiththeprofessor.com/new. That'll get you some information about the model and the rules of this community. It's a player-based model, so the ratings will reflect the current roster. That means injuries matter. Average grade's 100. Higher implies more runs. We're talking about an average game. Begin one game. Who knows what will happen? The Rockies, might decide to not even show up, which is bound to happen. But because Jared and I talked about that, we had no idea what was going to happen in Coors, and so I was like, let's just take plus odds because the Reds are pretty good, right? And it turns out what happened was the Rockies decided to literally take their pants down and take a dump on the field, which happens. But we are talking about the average game, what happens 20 times, 50 times, 100 times, and that tells us what price to bet so that in the long run we're profitable. It won't win every single night, obviously, but Jake, it is worth pointing out that while Monday we lost all 3 show picks, the play of the day won. And I think I had 2 other A-grade picks on Dub Club that won as well. Yeah. It was one of those weird nights where all the paid picks won, all the free picks lost. That's random variance if it happens. I always joke that as a statistics teacher, if I had really felt like it, I could always tell a student who was going to do homework or not by assigning them to flip a coin 100 times in a row, because the students who would cheat would never have a run of like 6 heads in a row, which if you flip a coin 100 times in a row, you should get 6 heads, because weird things happen. Our brains don't like to acknowledge it, but that's unfortunately the way it goes. Anyway, I'll stop rambling about that. Of course, as always, take what you like and leave the rest. Jake, we're going to start with an afternoon game here. Cardinals and the Astros, hot in Houston. It's June, 90 degrees, roof will be closed. Thank God if you're going to the game. Of note, Kyle Tucker likely not to be playing again in the day game. Alex Bregman hit by a pitch early on in Tuesday night's game, stayed in the game, continued to play, had his next at bat. The game's still happening right now, so I don't know how that's going to play out. So that seems like he's fine, but just take note of that. If he's out, the price probably drops a nickel or a dime. Hopefully you would be able to get a better price than this. Miles Mikolas and Ronel Blanco. Blanco's not as good as that 2.44 ERA, but he's still a very solid pitcher. Miles Mikolas, not as bad as that 5.54 ERA, but not a very good pitcher. That's really what this boils down to. The Astros offense, a little bit weaker now. That grades dropped a lot without Kyle Tucker. has been so good for them. And that's where this Astros offense drops from, hey, they're really good. They're up in the top 4 to now they're flirting with only being about 10th. But the Cardinals offense has been really disappointing. So when you talk about even without Tucker, this Astros offense is still better than the Cardinals offense. Blanco's better than Michaelis. The Astros should get up early and cruise to a victory. That's what it looks like they're doing here on Tuesday. Hopefully they can continue to do that for us. It's minus 170 to steep price. If you don't like steep prices, hold that thought in your head for later on. I have an idea for you. But Jake, what are your thoughts on this game?
Like I like fading Mikolas. It's done very well for me this year. I think he's overvalued. There's still some like lingering parts. I don't know if he got hurt a few years ago, or I can't remember. It's hard to keep up with all the pitchers that get hurt now.
If you say he probably got hurt, he probably did. I mean, everyone's been hurt. It seems like so.
Yeah,
you're probably right.
But he's just not been the same guy from a handful of years ago, and the Cardinal, like people keep still trying to believe in him, like there's still something there, and I don't think it's there. The Cardinals offense not as good as what it should be with the names they have. And I know they've been beat up left and right, but it's just not the team I thought. I'm still mad at Sonny Gray for choosing the Cardinals over the Braves. Really could have used him. So that's another reason I'm picking the Astros, because the Astros offense really heating up. It seems like the last couple of weeks they've really kind of finding their stride. If they get just a decent outing out of Blanco, I think they're good enough to finish this out.
Yeah, it's a great point there too. That Michaelis is serviceable enough to land in an MLB rotation, but if you're trying to build a playoff contender, he's more like your 5th starter, not anything better. And that's the thing, is as a 5th starter going up against a solid Astros offense with not a good offense yourself on the road, like you're probably not likely to win. We think the Astros win this 2 out of 3 times. The threshold to play it is minus 176. As long as you're in the minus 170s, that's fine. But again, put a pin on the thought. If you're a person who doesn't like steeper prices, note, if you're playing the run line on this, I'd play the -1 personally. I don't like laying the 1.5. Just in general, that's for a sanity stake. There's 180 some odd days in a baseball season, and most days have 15 games. And you got to stay sane to the process. Laying a 1.5 for me is terrible, because if it's a tight game late, you're like, then you start rooting for the other team to tie it up if they're up 1. I hate it. So I'd lay 1 rather than the 1.5. But again, asterisk this thought for later on in the show. Giants and Diamondbacks, late afternoon start, 3:40 p.m. Eastern, over 100 degrees in Arizona. Also another game where we're going to close the roof. Jordan Hicks and Jordan Montgomery, a pair of Jordans going in different directions. Now, Jordan Hicks, not as good as that 2.70 ERA. The underlying metrics are a little bit higher, but still very good. Jordan Montgomery, probably not quite as bad as that 5.48 ERA. His underlying metrics aren't terrible, but they're a far cry from what he's been in his whole career. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of spring training, not getting all of those innings in. We saw it with Snell, and I don't think that Snell has been that terrible. I think it's been overwrought a little bit. I think he's had some bad luck, but what for sure has happened with Snell has been injuries, along with a small step backwards. Again, part of it was he was never as good as he was last year. That was really lucky. But you take a few injuries, a little bit of bad luck, and a step backwards, and that's been his disaster of a season. And Montgomery's not that far behind him here. I had high hopes for Montgomery. I really thought he could figure it out, but it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And it makes you wonder, these guys who miss some time at spring training as pitchers, I think both Snell and Montgomery have come out publicly and said things like, I would never do that again, or something like that. Until he figures it out, I'm perfectly happy fading him. Let's take the Giants here at plus 117. Sideline says this is a coin toss game, so plus odds here make a lot of sense. We didn't win our 2 coin toss games on Monday, but again, we're not talking about a sample size of 2. We're talking about a sample size of 50, winning 25 of them. So we're starting off here for the week in our coin toss games 0-2. We got to go 25-23 in the coin toss games, and we'll be fine. Jake, what is your take on this one?
Like, I really like the Giants. I like the way Jordan Hicks is pitching. This is kind of what the Cardinals wanted to do with him. Then they shifted him all the way to the bullpen, and I don't think he felt comfortable there. But
like a yo-yo.
Yeah, and so now he's back to doing what he wants, what he seems comfortable doing. It is showing up. I know he's a little bit lucky with the ERA, but when you throw that kind of hard, I feel like that's always what's going to happen. And Montgomery, you're right. The spring training has been disastrous, him missing that, because I think his first 2.5 starts were really good, and then it doesn't have the strength buildup that you get for the year and all that, and he's really come apart. Plus the Diamondbacks are just they can't seem to keep anybody on the pitching staff healthy, relievers or starters. And they lost 4 now for 4 with Gallen, Kelly, Rodriguez. Like, it's just crazy. And don't trust the Diamondbacks offense to overcome this good to decent Giants team. Love getting the plus odds here. I'm gonna ride this one pretty heavy.
Yeah, the threshold for a pick according to the models plus 114. As long as you're in the plus 1 teens or plus 110 or better, it's probably a pretty solid pick. But again, plus 115 or higher would be, according to the model, an excellent pick. It's not to say again that we know exactly what will happen with the Giants game. We just think that the price is a good long-term investment. Something else of note, and again, I'm not a big closing line value guy. I try to talk about that a lot. I don't want to overblow that necessarily. I think it got its flaws definitely. But when we talk about a day like Monday, where we had both of those coin toss games that we talked about, we locked in a price on the Blue Jays and the Rockies that both moved, I think, 15 to 20 cents by game time. And that doesn't necessarily mean it was the right pick or anything like that. It just means that the market also thought there was some value on it and thought that the price was off and that it was a good long-term investment. It didn't work out for us again, but in the long run, if we're consistently getting good values, that makes a lot of sense. And again, I don't use the market as the only judge of if it's a good value, but it is one factor that can help you gauge a little bit with regards to if you got value. We got value on those picks. That doesn't mean they win. The value picks aren't going to go undefeated, but they are in the long run going to profit. And that's another one right here that this Giants pick of who knows what's going to happen. The Diamondbacks offense is solid, but other than that, you got to like the edge the Giants have. And the bullpen as well, a bullpen that even though Doval got lit up his last time out, this Giants bullpen starting to look pretty good. They'll have a good pitching edge from start to finish. Of course, always though, shop around for the best price. If you can get, even if it's in the model's best threshold, you find a plus 115, if you can find a plus 120, a plus 125, whatever you can find, the best price you can get, even if the number moves against us, and you can still find the plus 110 rather than playing a plus 105, whatever it may be, or against you, whatever it may be. The best price possible wins you more when you win. You lose less when you lose. If you don't have an account there yet, sign up today at BetUS just to add another book to your account. You get a 125% bonus on your first ever 3 deposits up to $2,000, up to a lot of money that they'll give you in free bets. It does have some rollover. You have to play around with it a little bit. But again, we give you enough plays here that shouldn't be an issue. So if you have not yet, check out BetUS today.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
Moving on to the night games, White Sox and the Cubs. Jake, I think I saw the other day that or today maybe, that in the month of May, the White Sox and the Cubs combined for like the worst 2 records in baseball or something. The Cubs at least had a stronger start to the season than the White Sox did. Looking to bounce back now. This Cubs team isn't terrible. Their offense is solid. Their bullpen kind of up and down, depends on who's in it. They've got some decent starters. Taillon's nothing special. His ERA is very nice so far at 2.84, only 8 starts, so his underlying metrics are a little bit concerning. That's why he still grades out below average. Eric Fedde, similar story, 3.12 ERA. His underlying metrics are better than Taillon's. He's got a little bit more of a past history of being a weaker pitcher. So you take the previous year's struggles that Fedde's had, combining him with a nice start to this season, kind of puts him in the same boat that Taillon is, where he's had a history of being a stronger pitcher, but so far this season, the underlying metrics a little bit struggling. All that to say, these starting pitchers are just kind of meh. But once you get past that, the White Sox are terrible. Dead last in the baseball, according to the model in offense. Dead last in baseball, according to the model in relievers. The Cubs are at home. They should win this a ton. Big price here as well. 68% of the time the Cubs win. Threshold, minus 188, so minus 190 we'll say or better. We're going to play the Cubs at minus 180. It's another steep price. I'm wondering how many people are going to watch this show and moneyline parlay the Cubs and the Astros, because if you like steep prices, I guess that you could do. Jake, tell us more about why the Cubs make sense, as long as we're paying a price like this, not paying a price like minus 240 or something ridiculous.
Like, fighting the White Sox this year has been incredibly profitable for I know it's not going so well tonight if you were on the Cubs, but I mean, blind squirrel finds a nut. I'm very curious if this White Sox team is worse than last year's A's team. Like, it's starting to feel like they are.
If they trade Crochet, that's got a good shot at it.
Like, this team feels worse by far right now because at least the A's had that little bit of it's an underdog story. They're not, but they're trying to be bad, and the White Sox are just.
Well, the A's had a little bit of an offense last year. Their bullpen was atrocious, but at least they could score some runs every once in a while. This White Sox team is.
And it also seems like the MLB is trying to make the White Sox bad too with the interference way to lose on a double play, stuff like that. It's just kind of fun. It's just kind of fun to poke fun of the White Sox fans right now. But Cubs aren't much better, man. But they've at least got the talent going right now. I mean, Swanson's been very bad this year for what they paid for him. They've got more guys like Bellinger and all that on this team that can really show up. White Sox at some point will have a couple innings in this game where they throw batting practice, and I think that's all it's going to take for the Cubs to win.
Yeah, it's a good point there. Weather-wise for this one in Chicago, low 70s. Wind will be blowing out about 10 miles an hour, so it's going to make it a pretty hitter-friendly environment. That said, these pitchers are decent enough, and the White Sox offense is bad enough. The model doesn't necessarily think we're going to have a shootout-type game. This is one of those things where we always talk about being price-sensitive. We built the model to help us say, when should we play minus 180, and when should we say, oh my gosh, there's no way, and when should we actually go the other direction and fade it? So you have a couple of options on this one. If you want to play them solo, play the Cubs, play the Astros both, I would look at minus ones. Again, you can create the minus one market yourself by betting to win a certain amount on the money line and then risking that amount on the run line. So you can make that yourself. That's typically the cheapest way to do it and better than books offer it themselves. Or you can money line parlay. My fear about money line parlaying and what I don't like is I don't like doing that at a different time slot, because then the first one wins and then you have this thinking about it and should I hedge out and whatever. A money line parlay should be used more as a bankroll management tool, which for me means it should be things that are happening at the same time, personally. But we're really at that threshold for both of these picks. And again, everything's graded off of ROI and units. So we are having to lay, of course, more for this. So it'll be reflected in the record. This is not a show that just touts win-loss records. So if we split the Cubs and Astros, that'll be a loss for us here. So if you're thinking about that, viewer, no worries there. But we are on that threshold of how to play this one with those steep prices. I know that Cousin Jared's talked about this previously. He typically says as long as it starts with a 1, he'll play the money line, and his general default is when it goes to a 2, that's when he'll go to the run line. And of course, he says asterisk depending on situations with the total, if the total's higher or lower. If you're in Coors Field, you always just want better odds, and you never want to lay odds in Coors Field because who knows what's going to happen, right? That sort of thing. But Jake, I'm curious your take on this. Where's your threshold for looking at something like this? Because I know some people might say it's more like minus 150, or some will say game by game, or because you're having it minus 200. How do you view these plays where we're saying there's value on it? So how do we attack that value between a minus 170 and a minus 180 play here?
I just play these straight up, or these two straight up, specifically because I think the Astros are like I said, I'm probably go a little heavier there. I just not 100% trusting the Cubs. It's more about teams to me. If we're throwing the Astros, and if this were the Braves, I'm hitting that, or the Yankees or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then I'll tie them together. But this one, I'm worried. I don't want to lose to the Cubs twice because I don't want to play it individually and in the parlay and then get killed. So I'd rather take my risk with the Cubs once and not tie it to the Astros. I'd rather be able to collect on my Astros win.
Yep, and that's, of course, a different perspective, too. Some people think about, this one, how much does this play about fading the White Sox versus backing the Cubs, that sort of thing. And, of course, typically we're fading the White Sox. The Astros, of course, and you may be watching this viewer, you may be talking about Eric Fedde and how good of a season he's had. And I would not deny that. He's one of the few bright spots on the White Sox this year. But I just would have to remind you, viewer, that Garrett Crochet has been amazing for the White Sox this season, even better than Fedde. And Fedde's been very good himself. I do not want to take anything away from that. But they've lost a lot of games those guys have started because they can't score, or if they do, the bullpen gives it up. And that's the thing. That doesn't mean that they will lose this one. It just means they both, Fedde and Crochet themselves, should have won about 75% of the games that they've pitched. And I think it's probably closer to 25% just because of how bad the rest of this team is. And a couple that's injuries, and a couple of it's just the White Sox absolutely tanking. You see my Astros gear on. I went to many an Astros game when they tanked. So I'm well aware of those days when that happened and the way that goes. If you're a White Sox fan, unfortunately, it is not good times for you. That's what we've got. Again, reminder, Dub Club has more picks, play of the day, more projections, all sorts of goodies. Check out that link in the show description. Jake, parting words before we sign off for the day.
I'm excited for this weekend with the college baseball World Series. That has got my attention. I mean, Tennessee got a gift of a draw here with Evansville winning the Eastern Carolina regional.
Yeah.
So
4 seed winning a regional is always tugs at your heartstrings, right?
Yep. And then they get to walk into Knoxville. So I'm looking. I don't want to look too far ahead, but I'm starting to check Omaha hotel prices.
I was gonna say if they can then go into Knoxville and win that one, that would be. I mean, that would just continue a Cinderella run already for them. I caught a little bit actually last night in the hospital Monday night. I saw that Oklahoma, I think, was about a 2.5 run favorite in that game, and they just got smoked. So that was quite a surprise. I believe UConn, I guess, was the team that did that. And UConn, of course, known for former Astros great World Series MVP George Springer. But UConn, not necessarily known for a baseball hotbed, but moving on as well. So it's always fun to have these stories of these random schools that, maybe aren't necessarily, you're not your SEC or Big 12 or Pac-12 powerhouse schools moving on, right?
Then you got the D3 school that's playing for the championship in their World Series. That's their school closed down. So
the school shut down. I don't even know. It's hard to really wrap the brain around that one. That's a whole other set of issues and news story that I'm not sure we're equipped to handle. But hopefully you're enjoying some good baseball. Here's some college baseball as well. As always, though, thank you for watching. Best of luck. And remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.